Many Kenyans have reported to work and have ignored the opposition's calls for a stay away on Monday. Opposition leader Raila Odinga has been disputing the outcome of last week's presidential elections, which saw him lose to incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta. Renewed violence broke out in Kibera and Kisumu between his supporters and their opponents. The Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights says 24 people have been killed during protests that have erupted following the vote on Tuesday. Relative calm has been restored and Kenyans are getting back to their normal lives.
I support NASA, and all I was supposed to do was to vote and leave the rest to the politicians. Because if I were to boycott work today, those guys won't pay my bills. So if I boycott work, what will I say in the evening? Or maybe if NASA joins the government, maybe I may get a job. It doesn't work that way. So I would advise others that unless you have permission from your employer, then you better get to work.
NASA is not going to pay for our bills. I don't think it's a good move for them to tell you not to go to work. Actually, even right now, we have been out of business for the last 1 week. So it is like adding injury into whatever we have gone through. So I think they should tell people go back to work and wait for their next move.
Well, let's bring you an update now on the situation in Nairobi. We're joined by CGTN's Robert Nagila, who's in the city's central business district. Robert, of course, we saw some skirmishes this weekend in slum areas of Nairobi like Kibera and Mathare. But also what many people have noted is that there's largely been silence from the president's office. Can we expect a few words that might finally appease these tensions?
Well, thank you very much, Lindy. I'm actually standing in front of the president's office. Why is that significant? Because just a few minutes ago, President Uhuru Kenyatta arrived here with his entourage. The whole idea behind this is to project an image of normalcy returning to the capital city. We know that ever since he was declared winner by the Electoral Commission, President Uhuru Kenyatta has not been seen in public. However, late this morning, we got word that he would appear at his office to see how things were going on there. And the whole reason behind it is to project an image of normalcy returning to this country after that hard-fought polls. Now, in terms of the situation around Nairobi itself, it's been a very quiet 48 hours after we saw pockets of violence around several suburbs within the city itself. Now, the biggest problem for the media has been trying to sift through the information that we're receiving. On Sunday evening, we began to receive a lot of information that there were acts of violence in certain opposition strongholds, mainly Mathare, Kibera. Now, we've checked. We were told that there were several people who had been killed. We've checked. We've not found any information regarding any deaths in those areas. So it's been very, very quiet. Police say they're in control of the situation in the capital city, urging people to go about their business without any problems at all, and say that if anyone has any concerns about any situation, they should inform the police immediately. There are police patrols ongoing in the city as we speak, and it does appear largely that the call by the opposition leader Raila Odinga for Kenyans to boycott work this morning has flopped. We've seen traffic in the capital. We've seen people going about their businesses. Offices are full. Now, the government had asked all its employees to turn up on Friday, and it does appear that all government offices have complied with that rule.
And of course, the other important message that we heard from the opposition leader yesterday was that he will be detailing his next steps on Tuesday. Robert, from as far as what you're hearing on the ground, what is the expectation there, especially among his supporters? It seems we may have lost Robert Nagila. We do apologize for that. But indeed, we will try and get you more information as to what is happening on the ground around Nairobi. But as he says there, the president's trying to project an image of normalcy as he gets back to work too. Well, indeed, let's bring you some analysis now and insights on the political situation in Kenya. We're joined by retired Captain Collins Wanderi, who is a security analyst and lawyer. Captain, thank you so much for your time. Now, we've heard this call from the opposition opposition for people to stay away from work today, but it seems that many people have acted rather in defiance of that. What do you make of people's actions?
I wouldn't even call it defiance. I would call it total disinterest in the brinkmanship, and the opposition is trying to posture. Because the people have spoken in an election. They have exercised their right to vote, and the votes were counted, and the side that won was declared. And if you remember, the country has been in some kind of paralysis for the last 2 weeks, where people even traveled away from the city. And these are people who depend on daily work. And this is where the tragedy is, that you are addressing people who are casual laborers. They depend on daily wages, and that means they provide their labor and get something to feed their families. And these are people who've been away from work for the last 2 weeks. Others have traveled away from the city. So definitely they're about to ignore you. The rest of the people are employed by state institutions or private companies. Private companies would not heed such a call because they are not interested in the politics. The country has already lost too much in the space of 2 weeks, and I don't think any individual or companies are willing to lose anymore.
So as you say, largely disinterest then from the general public, but of course Raila Odinga is still very insistent that this election was stolen. He has said that he may not pursue any legal routes in terms of addressing this. What other options then does that leave him with?
I mean, you see, if you say an election is stolen, it's incumbent upon you. If you allege, you prove. So you need to go to the full hog and prove. The Constitution is very clear at Article 140 that he has, within 7 days after the date of declaration of the results, an opportunity to go to the Supreme Court and file a petition challenging the election results. And I have seen, largely the observers of this election have said that the elections were credible and fair. But there is one indictment that perhaps people in the opposition and supporters need to learn, that there was one local group, which is a consortium of observers, who had people on the ground who were taking photographs of each and every Form 34A that was declared at polling stations, and that is e-log. And e-log was very clear, even before the final tally by the IEBC and their local observer group. They were very clear that their own projection, that it is 54 to 45, and that is a group that is not allied to government. So therefore it becomes dicey. But when he says he doesn't want to go to court, there can only be 2 options legally. One is if you are challenging the entire election, not just, remember there were 6 elections on one day, then you can also decline to take up the seats that you have won in the other 5 elective positions. And that would be one legal way of him saying that my supporters and those who've won the seats for governor, for senator, members of the National Assembly and members of County Assembly shall not take up their seats. That's illegal. That's properly legal and within his rights. Whether those people who've been elected will then follow his advice or not, that's another thing. There is no other legal parameter other than going to the Supreme Court or refusing to take up those seats. The other method he may use would definitely be illegal and treasonous. And you saw there was an attempt to declare their own results and then backtracking, because that flies in the face of the law, and it was in fact treason. Yes.
And of course, at this point where we are, though, we are still looking at a country that remains largely divided. It was a very hard-fought and a very hotly contested election. And as much as Uhuru Kenyatta has won, there's still over 7 million people that didn't vote for him.
True.
So how does he, or what needs to happen to, first of all, bring the country together, but also to definitely just put to rest any questions over the credibility of this election?
On the question of the credibility of the election, it is incumbent upon the electoral body, that is IEBC, to get out and completely get out the facts as they are. Number one, this election, for the first time, technology worked in this election. Some of the contests you've had are on forms. Now, people have been talking about Form 34 and Form 34B, but you may not be aware there is also Form 33 and Form 32. Which are also very critical. In fact, if you are going to allege voter fraud, then you'd rather be focusing on what was done outside the electronic system, because that could only have been done under Forms 32 and Forms 33, and nobody's talking about that. Therefore, moving the country forward, the IEBC needs to really explain to the people and make a statement and explain how the election was conducted, and also let the observers the election observers, particularly those who collected data, they can work together to allay the fears. Secondly, in terms of moving the country forward, the president and his deputy have a perfect historical opportunity. Why? Apart from winning the presidential race, which was tightly contested, they have also, unlike in 2013, been able to win local seats in virtually every region of Kenya. Now, it is incumbent upon them to be magnanimous and humble in victory, and to let the other side also know, or their supporters know, that they mean well for the republic. And this is by first appreciating and respecting the choices the people have made, even in areas where they did not vote for them. Do not fight those who are elected on the opposition ticket. Embrace them, work with them, join them, call upon them, because after all, each and every person elected at every level is elected to represent or to execute the mandate constitutionally on behalf of the people. Work with those ones. Don't fight them, because even if they're in the opposition, they are Kenyans. And then that way you can move the country forward.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much for that analysis, Collins Wandera, live here in our studios.